Today I'm going to be doing a electoral college projection map based on how I think the presidential election is going to turn out this year. And at the time I'm making this video is right after the first debate. So you can get this map on CNN if you want. Right now CNN has Donald Trump's chance of winning at 33% and Clinton at 67%. These numbers have actually gotten closer over the last month, and Trump has generally been trending in the right direction in the polls. He was down rather significantly after the Democratic convention, and ever since then he's been slowly but gradually gaining on Clinton. This has kind of actually been a consistent pattern that we've seen from Clinton in the past when she was going against Barack Obama. Initially, before things started in 2008, she had a fairly big lead in the polls, and as people got to know her more, she lost ground in the polls to Obama and eventually lost. And then obviously people remember this year when she was initially going against Bernie Sanders, she was up as much as 60% in the polls early on. And then as we got closer to the election and people started hearing Sanders' message, that number shrunk to basically a near tie by the end of things. But she had still built a large enough lead to finish him off. But this is a trend that we've seen before, and there's no reason to think that this trend won't continue. And the only way I don't see Trump, continuing to gain on Clinton and maybe even building a slight lead, is if he has some really bad gaffe moments like he's had in the past. Especially if he can avoid this before the election, that's really going to work into his favor. But anyways, I'm not a fan of either of these candidates. I try to be impartial in these videos. I'm just giving information based on what I've gathered. But first, I'm going to go through the states and give Trump the ones that he's solidly polling ahead in and are pretty much locks for him to win. And then I'm going to do the same for Clinton. And then after that, there'll be probably like 10 or to 15 states left over at the end that are considered battleground states. And I'll just go through one by one and give the reasons why I think either Trump or Clinton are going to win that particular state. And generally I'll use polling data or the demographics of the state or things like that. So, alright, getting started here with Trump. We're going to give him Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and that should pretty much do it for the... Oh, and then also there's one district in Maine that he's polling actually over 10% of Clinton right now, so I think we can also safely give him that one. And that's going to be it for him in term... Oh, obviously Texas. That's a big one. So that gets... Oh, and Alaska. Alright. Gotta remember these states that are kind of off the map here. Alright, so that gets him up to 155 electoral votes, and he needs to get up to 270. So now we're going to go through the states that Clinton should have pretty much safely secured at this point, and that's Washington, Oregon, California. Going over here, Maine, the other three votes that Maine gets, we'll go Vermont, New York, Massachusetts. It's kind of hard to click some of these smaller states. Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, District of Columbia. Minnesota's also almost certainly in her camp. And then Maryland and Virginia. She actually, earlier today, a poll came out where she was ahead 10% in Virginia, and it really helps the vice president candidate that's a senator from Virginia. Will give her a boost there, so I think Virginia is going to be fairly safe in her camp. And then also obviously Illinois, safe Democrat state. So now we're left with just a handful of states that are considered battleground. And oh, also Clinton gets Hawaii, obviously. I keep forgetting these states that are off the map. All right, so that gets Clinton up to 208, needing 270 to win. So now we're going to work our way through the battleground states, and starting with Nevada, I feel like Nevada is going to be very close. The big key here for Clinton is the Latino vote, the Hispanic vote, which she should be able to win pretty convincingly. And before I get into more talking about these battleground states, I should note that Clinton has huge voting edges with the African American community, Hispanic community, and women. And Trump's edge comes with Caucasian voters and men. So I'll use some of that information when I'm going through these battleground states, but I think the Hispanic vote is going to be big for Clinton, and I think she's going to get enough of an edge in the main population center in Las Vegas to barely get her over the edge. Also, Nevada's been trending blue in recent elections, and even though I think it's going to be even closer than Obama and Romney had, I think that she's just going to barely pull out Nevada. Colorado, another state that's trending Democrat. All the recent polls have Clinton beating Trump, and there's really no evidence currently that would suggest that Colorado is going to go for Trump. New Mexico, the same. A state that's trended Democrat in recent years. Also, the Hispanic vote's going to be big for Clinton in this one, and New Mexico also generally tends to be more Democratic than their neighbor Arizona and Texas. And there's really no concrete evidence to suggest that Trump is going to be able to flip this state. All right, moving over to the Midwest, Missouri. Trump is ahead in the polling. A large Caucasian population. The only two counties that Clinton's probably going to win are where St. Louis and Kansas City are, but Trump's gains in every other county should be enough to put him over the top. Iowa, another state that is going to be very close, much like Nevada. I think it's going to be razor thin, but I think Trump has the right demographics in this state. And also, you know, like I said earlier in this video, the more people see Clinton and the more people that see Trump, they tend to disfavor Clinton and more favor Trump. So, you know, right now this state is pretty much a dead heat, but as we get closer to the election, I expect Trump to gain just enough to put him over the edge and pick up the state. Wisconsin is an interesting state. This is a state that Republicans can win, but more often than not, it does go Democrat. In general, in Wisconsin, we get a lot of evangelical voters, not necessarily a group that Trump always gets big support from, especially northern evangelical voters. If I remember correctly, in the primaries, Trump was he took a bad defeat to Cruz in Wisconsin, so not necessarily his type of supporter. But I do think that Wisconsin is going to stay Democrat in this election. And then Michigan, also a very interesting state, a state that's really been hurt by trade deals that have sent manufacturing jobs out of the country. And the key for Republicans in the state of Michigan is to make road ends into the population center, which is in this area of the state around Detroit. If Trump gets enough of that manufacturing vote just from people that are really struggling, then I think that he could make it closer than most Republicans have been able to make in presidential elections in recent years. But I do think that this state is also going to stay Democratic. We're talking about a state that, you know, went for Al Gore when Gore lost, went for John Kerry when John Kerry lost, and then obviously went for Obama the last two times. So I do believe that Michigan will stay Democratic. Indiana, a state that was able to flip to the Democrats in 2008, flip back to the Republicans in 2012, and obviously with the vice presidential candidate that Trump picked, I really don't see Indiana getting flipped back to the Democrats this go around. Going up to New Hampshire, this is another state that can be tough to predict, but I do think that Bernie Sanders has a lot of clout in this part of the country, and even Elizabeth Warren, and if they do enough down the stretch, I think that they're going to be able to push this state in favor of Clinton. Moving down, Pennsylvania, this is another state that can be won by Democrats or Republicans. It's generally in presidential elections, it goes to Democrats, especially with Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, big population centers, tend to lean Democrat. In presidential elections, the voters in these areas turn out more. All the polling that we've seen from Pennsylvania recently has Clinton up a fair margin, and as you see right there, that's the difference maker to get Clinton over the edge. But we'll go through these last states here. Georgia, it's going to be closer than we've seen in the past between Democrat and Republican presidential candidate, but I do see Trump holding on and getting the job done. Even though Clinton will get big gains from like Atlanta, the big population center, I do think that Trump's going to win the rest of the state to push him over the top. Ohio, this is a state that's gone to Obama in the last two elections, but I think that it's going to flip to Trump this go around. I also think that there's a lot of that manufacturing plight that is going to give Trump a lot of support, and also the border with Indiana, we're going to get some carryover for the people that like his vice presidential candidate choice, and I think that's going to be enough to push Ohio red this go around. Florida, another state that is really important and decides elections. Recent polling that I've seen has had Trump and Clinton at different times winning the state. I do think that Trump is going to continue to gain on Clinton in Florida, and it's going to be just enough in the end to push him over the top in the end, and I think that Trump is going to grab Florida. And then North Carolina, the last state we got on here, this is a state that can be won, obviously, by Democrats or Republicans. They have a governor's race that it looks like the Democrat's going to win, and also a Senate race that looks like the Democrat might be able to win based on current polls that I've seen. But I do think that there's a lot of men and white voters that are going to be really coming out to support Trump in this state. Obviously, Charlotte is going to be a big one for Clinton, and then there's also some college towns that are pretty famous around North Carolina that should go to Clinton, and this is going to be a really competitive state, but I do think that Trump is going to win it in the end. So this is how I see the map shaking out. As you can see, very close, 278 to 260. This pretty much means that for Trump to win, all he needs to do would be flip one state, such as Pennsylvania. If he flipped Nevada, that, let's see, yeah, that wouldn't be enough. And then there's some, I really don't see him being able to flip Michigan or Wisconsin. Maybe Virginia. If he was able to flip Virginia, that would push him over the top. But you know, the Democrats, they got a lot of flack for picking Tim Kaine as the vice president because he's not popular with the progressives. Like if they would have picked Elizabeth Warren, people think that would have been big for their base. But the one thing that Kaine will help them in is Virginia. And if Clinton's able to win Virginia, she could lose Florida and Ohio and still become president. Really, the big one is just going to be the state of Pennsylvania. If Trump is able to flip Pennsylvania somehow, that gets him to 280 to 258. And I think that's Trump's best chance at upsetting Clinton. If he's unable to get Pennsylvania, it's going to have to be something like Nevada and New Hampshire would have to flip. Or somehow Michigan, but I see his chances of Pennsylvania flipping more so than Michigan. If he was able to flip Wisconsin, that would get him just over the hump. But I also don't see Wisconsin flipping at this point. So yeah, that's how I see it shaking out. Really close election. And if Trump is able to continue to show the progress that he's shown over the last month, he definitely has what it takes to get over that hump in the end. We only have about 5 weeks left before the election, and really anything can happen. Based on what I've been able to tell, Clinton is pretty much trying to play things very cool-handed, and she's pretty much waiting for Trump to beat himself by saying something horrible. But Trump seems to have the right team in place now that he's been able to avoid this particular scenario where he says something that, you know, pushes people over the line to not vote for him. And the longer Trump can go without saying something that's offensive, the more people will forget about the stuff he said in the past. And that will also help him as he tries to bring more people onto his side. Because at least currently, Clinton does have the slight edge, but after the debate tonight, we can see that Trump did really well. I actually think that he pulled out the win, just because he pretty much dominated the stage, and I don't know. Just personally, he just seems more genuine when he's talking, which seems to be really important to the American people in this go-around. If this was a traditional election, I would have maybe said that Clinton won the debate just because she seemed a lot more cool and collected and presidential. But that's not what people are looking for in this go-around. They're looking for, someone to change the culture in Washington, and the debate performance, we saw that from Trump, and we didn't see that from Clinton. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out, and anything can happen. So we'll see. Thanks, guys, for watching, and for more political content in the future, please subscribe. I might do another map like this after the future debates. I'm not exactly sure. If any of the polling numbers change or any of the data changes, I might put up another map, but this is pretty much what I have set for now in terms of how I think things are going to be shaking out in November. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next